Okay, hey everybody. We are now in Chapter 7 talking about mnemonics. We're going to be talking about how we can use tricks to tease out memories that we may have otherwise lost the ability to access. So essentially what we're doing is we're talking about how to create useful retrieval cues. All right, so whenever we talk about what a mnemonic is, and you've probably heard that phrase before, what a mnemonic is simply a learning strategy or a learning aid. It is some kind of device that you have that can help you retrieve something out of your long-term memory. So for me, the biological taxonomy. If you've taken, a biology class, you have to remember the taxonomic classifications. So what are those? They are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, in that order. So every species has kind of a distinction of kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Now that is really difficult to remember the order of, because I don't even know what a phylum is, right? Like, I don't know what a phylum is. And so this stuff doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. And so the way that you can remember this order is by basically tricking your brain. You're going to remember something else. You're going to try to remember something that is more vivid, that is easier to remember, and then you're going to associate that with this more complicated piece of information. So, for example, I have, and this is whenever I was an undergrad, I learned this, and it stuck with me, for over 10 years now. So here we have kings play chess on funny green stools. That is a saying that kind of, it's, you can imagine it. It's kind of silly to imagine, to picture it, but it is a vivid image. And because it is a vivid image, it sticks in our head easier. And so if we can remember this phrase, then we can remember the order in which kingdom, so we got K for both of these, P for both of these, C for both of these, O for both of these, F for both of these, G for both of these, and S for both of these. So it's much easier, at least for me, to remember kings play chess on funny green stools instead of kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Otherwise, it would be really easy to falsely remember kingdom, phylum, order, class, family, genus, species, right? You mess one of those up, and you get points off of your biology exam. So another probably more common, I think probably the most common ones that you are aware of are going to be Roy G. Biv. Roy G. Biv is the colors of the rainbow in order, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And instead of trying to remember that order, you can simply just remember the phrase, Roy G. Biv. And then probably the other one that's very, very famous is PEMDAS. So, or for me, I always remembered it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And what is that? That is the order of operations. So whenever you're doing math, you know which things to take care of first. P is for, please is for P, which is for parentheses. E is for exponents. So please excuse. My is for M, is multiplication. D for dear is for division. A for aunt is addition, and Sally, S, is for subtraction. You've done these before, right? But instead of having to remember this arbitrary kind of order, you can simply put on this funny kind of interesting saying, and it's way easier to remember it that way. The difference, though, and sometimes I have students complain about this, is that sometimes it still feels like work. It still feels, it's a kind of a cool technique, but you got to take time to do it, right? And yeah, that is true. That for some of these things, you do have to put in a little bit of work up front in order to be able to do it. But the more you do it, the better you get at it too. So you can think of it as any other kind of learning strategy. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the faster you're able to nail it and things like that. So another tool that we're going to be using is the method of loci. This is also referred to as the memory palace. Essentially, the memory palace is whenever you imagine somewhere that you are really familiar with, and you associate items around around that place that you're familiar with. And then whenever you need to retrieve what those items were, you can simply walk back through your memory palace and recall them. So in the classroom, I typically will try to impress somebody by either using the memory palace example to remember every Best Picture winner, every film that's won the Oscar for Best Picture, or remembering all 45 or so presidents in order. And I do both of those lists by using the memory palace. So what I want to do is try to get you to use the memory palace in a very quick example. So what I want you to do is, I should probably write this stuff down. What I want you to do is I want you to think about maybe your childhood home. I want you to think of a place that is very, very familiar to you. So I'm just going to write down a couple of grocery list items. So what I'm going to do in just a moment is I'm going to ask you to try to imagine walking around your childhood home or your current home, wherever you are more familiar with. And I'm going to list, let's say, 7 things. So we know that a list of 7 words can be kind of tricky to remember, but I'm going to show you that it can be super easy to do using this method. Just give me 1 second. All right. So I'm writing these things down so that I don't forget what they are. Okay. So I want you to, if you need to close your eyes and just picture that you're driving and you're arriving at your you're arriving at your childhood home. You're arriving at this place that you're super familiar with. So you're either in the driveway or you're on the curb or whatever. And as you're stepping out of your car, you feel underneath your feet lots of tiny little explosions of things that are popping. And what they are, when you look down, are cherries that you have just accidentally stomped on cherries as you were leaving your car. And so all those juices are now in the road or on the sidewalk or whatever, and your shoes are covered in this cherry juice. So that's the first item on our list, is cherry. As you are walking to the front door, you step on the welcoming mat, and it feels very cold underneath your feet, and that's because you look down, and it is basically made of ice cream. That you're standing in kind of this kind of melted puddle of ice cream, and now your shoes are basically ruined, right, from what you just stepped in, and also now this ice cream. Then you're going to reach for the door. You're going to grab the doorknob, and it feels very, very rough. It feels very strange. And so you look at it, and that doorknob is now encrusted with rice. So there's now rice and you can imagine that texture on your hand from reaching out and grabbing that doorknob. It feels very uncomfortable. All right, so now you've twisted this rice doorknob, and you go inside. And you're going inside your childhood home now, and you see a leak over to your right. So wherever you're coming in to your childhood home through the front door, there's a leak that is sprung. And let's say that it's dripping from the ceiling now. And it's kind of this brownish liquid. And it worries you at first because, oh God, it's brownish liquid leaking from the ceiling. But don't worry, it's just soda. So it's not, any kind of sewage. It's just soda. It's just, Coca-Cola or whatever leaking from the ceiling. So that is the soda. And then, all right, so after that, you decide that you're going to go over to wherever you normally get your, wherever you get towels. So if maybe they're in a closet of some sort. And so you go in there and you grab a towel, you unfurl it so you can try to pat down this soda that's everywhere. And as you unravel the towel, there's lots of graham crackers that are in there. So these graham crackers are now on the floor. They're getting all smushed up from the leaking soda. So now you have graham crackers that are making a mess. That frustrates you, obviously. So now you are going to the sink so you can wash your hands. And as you do that, you go for the soap, and the soap has now been replaced with lettuce. So you're washing your hands with lettuce now. These weird green leaves. It doesn't feel comfortable. You're not convinced that it's actually killing any germs, but that is what you're doing. And then after that, you wash your hands off, and you reach for the paper towels, and the paper towels are gooey because they are now macaroni and cheese. So that's going to be the end of the story. I know it's a really bizarre story, right? But what I want you to do now is to try to imagine walking back through that scenario. And this is going to be, and so we talked about 7 things to put on your grocery list. So these 7 things, if you don't, I mean, obviously today we can just put this stuff on a cell phone, right? We can put it on our smartphones and take it with us to the grocery store. But let's say if you weren't able to do that, if you had to do this from memory, this is a pretty good technique to do that. It does require some work up front to do that. It took a while for me to tell you that story, right? But if you were sitting and imagining it and trying to think about it vividly, then a lot of that stuff should come flooding back to you very quickly. So if you were to walk through this, the first thing, whenever you're stepping out of the car, what did you get? You had cherries. Whenever you got up to the front door, ice cream. Reach for the door handle, rice. Whenever you stepped in, there was a leak. It was soda. When you went to get the towels, graham crackers. Whenever you went to wash your hands, lettuce. And then whenever you went to dry your hands off, it was macaroni and cheese. And I'm just making sure that, yep, those were all the ones that we had, and we had them in order. And you can do that very easily by just imagining this really familiar place with you. This is a very complicated mnemonic, right? But this is whenever people who are experts, people who are world experts at memory, this is the technique that they use. Every single person uses this technique with a couple of enhancements to make it easier, more thorough. But essentially what you want to do is imagine yourself walking in a place and doing it in really, really vivid detail. Usually the more vivid, the better. So this is, we can combine this with further things to create what's called the PEG system. So we're talking about these world experts. How are some of them able to astonish us with their memory? You have people who are able to remember, the first 200 digits of pi, the first 300 digits of pi. People who are able to memorize a deck of cards and all these other things. It's really, really hard to imagine being good at that because we are, by our nature, not very good at remembering letters. We're not very good at remembering numbers, but we are really good at remembering vivid details. We're very, very good at imagining how things look and how things smell and how things taste and how they sound. So if we can convert letters and numbers into pictures and scenes, then we stand a much better chance of remembering that stuff. And so the PEG system, sometimes you'll hear it called the master system, is a way that you can do that. Essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to take, let's say, and actually I'm going to ask that you pause this video and check out this video right here. This is a video that whenever I'm teaching this in person, we basically spend 20 minutes on in class because we make this big activity out of it. Essentially, you'll be able to remember the first 100 digits of pi. And if you don't think that you can, I guarantee you that you can just by watching this video and practicing maybe 2 or 3 times. You'll be able to remember the first 100 digits of pi. Most people don't believe that, but if you try it, I guarantee that you're going to surprise yourself with how good you are at it. But in this video, what this guy is doing, this guy, his name is Joshua Foer, and Joshua Foer is, he was at one point the United States memory champion. He doesn't have an especially good memory. He just has a lot of really good memory strategies for how to do this. And in this particular case, what he does is he converts every single number, so 1 through 0 or 0 through 9, into a letter. And if you take those letters, you can use those letters to make words. If you remember those words, you can use those words and convert them into images, and you can make a story out of them. And so he's going to be combining this technique with the memory palace to basically remember the first 100 digits of pi. So if you do, and I ask you, please try it, like to look at that video. It is easy to feel overwhelmed. What you should focus on while you're watching that video is just the images. Just let those images come to you. Just focus on the images. Don't worry about the letters. Don't worry about the numbers. Just focus on the images. If you get that down, then you can always refer back to this chart and then kind of work out what it is that those images stand for. And then if you can do that, then you can come out with the first 100 digits of pi. So give that a shot. Try it out again, and even if you don't want to try it out, just watch the video so that way you can get a good sense for how this works in action. So whenever things do seem to actually, I'm gonna stop this video here because that's a good place to stop it, and we're at about 15 minutes, which is good. So I plan to go longer, but that's okay. We'll just squeeze in another smaller video instead of making this one too long. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next video.